Okay, today I'm going to review. I decided to take or delve a little further into the V3, and I know some of you guys out there are thinking that I'm going to Carvin V3 you to death, but I'm in the process of recording, which a lot of you already know, and sometimes when you're recording, you want to try to get a certain sound, and it makes you really kind of delve into your gear in order to try to get that particular sound you're after, or approximate that particular sound you're after without having to add a piece of gear or borrow a piece of gear from anybody. And that's what kind of led to this video. I kind of found that through messing with the EQs of the amps and messing with some of the functions or options in the amp, I noticed that during playback I was able to get very close to some particular sounds that I was trying to get, and that made me think, well, hey, no one's really, or at least no videos that I've been able to find, have really delved into exactly tonally how diverse the V3 is, or how many different sounds you can get. Now, before I get too many bashing statements out there from people that will listen to this after the fact, I'm not saying that you can make a Carvin V3 sound exactly like any of the sound samples I'm going to go over. It's more meant to show that in what I consider battlefield conditions, i.e. playing a show or doing a recording on a limited budget, in battlefield conditions you can really get very close, or close enough to certain sounds to be able to cover material in that I guess, for better lack of a better term, within the genre that these amps would mostly be used for. Which that gives it sort of a, now like I said, it doesn't sound exactly like an AC30, but you can hear a lot of that top end chime kind of on them high notes, but you can still hear the growl. Now we'll get more of that Marshall type growl. Which is pretty good. Now mind you also, that's hitting the strings pretty hard. It's very touch responsive, of course, as I've seen in other videos, so you can still come back. Still clean it up a little bit just by using touch or volume. Oh, of course, the other thing I did on this, which I forgot to mention most importantly, because even going for the AC30 or the Marshall sound, it will lose a little bit of that if you don't do this little tone trick, which is you take a patch cable and you patch the send and return on the parallel effects loop, and then you take the level of the parallel effects loop and you turn it all the way up, and it gives you a boost. But it doesn't just boost the overall signal. Both boosts actually do this. Is it actually boosts the mids a little. That little trick helps bring the mids up a little bit to give you a little bit more of that. Still not quite. If it's still not quite enough for you, take that same switch and hit it up to the bright, and what you can do is take the treble all the way up. I mean the presence all the way up. Give it a little bit more sparkle. I also find that with the high output pickups and the Paul Reed Smith approximating the Fender Clean becomes a little bit more difficult. Using the Strat, which has a little softer output too. I'm doing that using the same two guitars that most people have in their collection, which is one equipped with humbuckers and one equipped with single coils. Too bass, you want a little bit more, maybe a little less bass, take to the middle position. that 80s Marshall sound. To me, a very Now, a lot of times I'll turn the presence down a bit and I'll take the mids and scoop them, and it gives you more of a, just more of that scoop. It just gives you more of that really scoop sound. But if you really want like a mesa type scoop sound, once again you've got to take that presence. You got to bring that presence up to about 7 and add a little bit more of that. I think it's a little bit more of that approximated mesa. So I mean, you cannot get an exact sound of a 5150 or a mesa or an Engel sound from the amp, but you can get an approximated tone, which when mixed with a couple of layers of guitar recordings will come through very convincingly in the mix of your music. Now, like I was telling you before with that whole mesa thing, not the mesa, but the whole Engel thing, if you take the same setting I had for the Engel and then turn the presence up, oh no, actually, the presence worked. That was more my Engel type sound. If you take that and you turn the presence down, something completely different. I mean, to some people that may be an approximation of some tone. I just don't know what it is. I wanted to just kind of do this little video to show. I mentioned it in a couple of videos before about coming across amps that have sounded better than my V3, but not coming through a lot of amps that I thought could cover as much tonal ground. And then I thought about it after I said it and realized that in the videos that I shot, although I did hit on it a little bit, I never went into exactly what I meant by how much tonal territory that the Carvin V3 can cover. Now, like I said, that is not to say the Carvin V3, my disclaimer being, the Carvin V3 will not sound exactly like a Fender amp of any model. It will not sound exactly like an AC30. It will not sound exactly like a vintage Marshall. It will not sound like an 80s or 90s era Marshall. It will not sound exactly like an Engel, and it will not sound exactly like a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier, and it will not sound like you insert the name of your amp there. But what it will do is it will get kind of close. The word I've been using this whole video has been it will approximate, meaning it will come reasonably close to the sound. Another thing is when you're operating on a budget and you want to get close to a sound, if you're on a budget, close enough is good enough. I mean, if you can afford to have vintage Marshalls, AC30s, vintage Fender amps and all that stuff, that's great, and you know your recordings are going to sound a lot more authentic if you actually have the gear. But if you're recording on a budget and all you can afford is one amp, I guess what I'm saying is at that point this is a good amp to look into. Now, as I've stated in my other videos, I did do a couple little things different to this amp that I did think improved the sound a little bit. One is I took out the EL34 power tubes and replaced them with 6V6s, which in turn dropped my wattage a little bit, letting me crank the amp at lower volumes a little better. It's still pretty loud, but a little better. But the biggest thing that I did different is the speakers that came with the Carvin V3 tended to add a lot more aggression to the sound, almost giving it kind of like that fizzy, fuzzy thing that some people were complaining about it. But as you can tell by this video that I just shot, there's really no fizz, there's no fuzz. This video has not been doctored in order to get rid of the fizz and the fuzz. It just, once you do those couple of little changes, the fizziness will disappear, and what you'll be left with is a very good sounding. Once again, this is Gillen H2O. This has been Gear and Review, and this has just kind of been an overview of exactly how flexible the V3 can be.